I never didn't believe in Bigfoot. I never believed in it. I didn't believe in it. I never gave it any thought.
They kept wood knocking back and forth to each other, and it was in a pattern.
Barn owls don't typically throw rocks.
I come across these tracks.
Sasquatch is still not on my mind.
Welcome back, Shetan. Glad to see you. Hello. Full disclosure, I had to go back to our old episode and watch it so I can remember how to pronounce your name. I said I won't be the one that calls her Shitten today. It's not going to happen. But yeah, welcome back. It's been great. Refamiliarizing myself with your material here, because you forget that so much is going on as far as like the Great Lakes. Those of you who don't know, right? Part of her expertise is Great Lakes history. I can't say the word historic. Historian of the Great Lakes and cryptids there. Good Lord. But anyway, if you haven't noticed, people in the chat and everything, the thumbnail had the Loch Ness Monster on it, and I know that's not in the Great Lakes. I'm not so dumb as to think about that, but since she is a lake monster enthusiast, I wanted to ask her what she actually thought the Loch Ness Monster might be. Like if it was 100% real, like where it might come from. Is it caves underneath the loch going to the ocean? Is it a giant sturgeon?
So I don't think it's a giant sturgeon, but there are endless possibilities of what people are actually seeing with Loch Ness, or what they have seen. And if the creature is even still alive, because these reports go back hundreds of years throughout history. So at some point, somebody had to have seen something for the legend and the stories to start, and for people to get inspired that there is something in Loch Ness. But many of the lochs around there also have lake monster or loch, creatures that there's legends of. But because Nessie, there's so much interest in Loch Ness, that's the one that everybody chooses to focus on, is Loch Ness. And so I don't really think it's a plesiosaur. Honestly, I would love if there was prehistoric marine reptiles still out there swimming in the oceans today, like plesiosaurs or mosasaurs, but I don't think it's a plesiosaur. And really, there's so many different reports that differ of, it being fish-like, it being eel-like, it being plesiosaur-like, that someday maybe we'll have something that comes to the surface and we can see it. But right now, I just like the mystery of there being some large animal that lives in Loch Ness that they haven't quite figured out yet. And to me, that's part of the enjoyment of the cryptid itself, is the mystery that goes along with it of what is it?
Fun one.
Yeah, where can we find this creature in the fossil record? What might it be? And I think when we look at elements like that, that to me is just as exciting and interesting as an actual flesh and blood body of having the creature right there. And if you're hearing a squeak toy, it's my it's my miniature pincher who's found a toy and is squeaking it.
I heard that. I was like, sounds like a dog's got a hold of something.
Yep.
I didn't realize that Scotland, where Loch Ness is nearly cut in half with water.
Oh, yes. Scotland has a lot of water.
It's like Minnesota in the water.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking at, there's like half a dozen lakes equally the size of Loch Ness, and a couple of them's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one's just a bay. That's not a lake. You can't call that a lake. But as far as as far as Nessie, lake monsters go, I don't even put them in the same cryptid categories like your standard, your Bigfoots and your Sasquatch and Dogman. It's almost like they could actually be real things and we don't know about. Or they could actually be real
Yes.
species. They don't feel
Well,
like they
because with
knocking out
with
cameras or
your
anything.
with your plesiosaurs and the mosasaurs, we have a
Mhm.
well-established, family group of each of those with many different individual species within those families of plesiosaurs and mosasaurs, and we have them in the fossil record. So we know
Mhm.
that at some time on Earth these existed. But there's that idea that what if there's a smaller version of these guys that's just swimming out there in the oceans and the seas today
Mhm.
that possibly science has missed, because especially when it's water based, there are so many new species that are found, and we're not talking microscopic, we're talking big. There
Oh yeah.
are, you know whales that they have just now realized, oh, this species isn't extinct. There's actually a breeding
Yeah.
population that we now have to put worldwide protection on so that, it doesn't get killed from whaling or nettings or, overfishing populations. Um, and so when we're looking at water cryptids that could possibly be something from the fossil record, there's so much possibility there that it's also one of the things that I find fascinating is I think that the discoveries
Mhm.
to be made are going to be either aquatics or reptilian and amphibian of new species that we're going to find.
And there's like Christine just said, the giant squid. We didn't know about them till what, 30 years ago?
Right, and
Is it that
actually
far
now
back?
there is a distinct. So you've got the giant red Pacific octopus,
Mhm.
you've got the giant squid, but you also have the colossal squid, and then there's probably even more giant species in the depths that we don't know about until evidence reveals itself, which is usually it's gotten to a tussle with a sperm whale and the sperm whale's bitten off a tentacle,
Mhm.
or they put down these deep underwater traps with cameras on them to get pictures. And now we've got this technology that can measure underwater the actual size of something, and that is producing some really fascinating information of what else could be out there.
How big is a giant Pacific red octopus? I didn't know those were this big.
They can be quite huge.
That's terrifying. Those things are sentient.
Oh yeah. And when you consider an animal of that size can squeeze itself
Hmm.
through an opening that is, that, um, that's like, horrifying. There's stories that if you look into escaped octopus in aquariums, where these big aquariums will have exotic fish going missing. And they set up cameras to see what's going on, and they come to the realization that the octopus is leaving its tank, going across the room or the corridor into other fish tanks, eating those fish, then going back to its own tank. And that's
Like
where
Finding
their
Dory.
their populations of exotic fish are going. It's because the octopus is stealing it.
This thing, it says it could weigh up to 120 pounds. That's
Yep.
crazy. I knew there was like a regular red octopus. I didn't
Yes.
know that they got to be like as big as like a small person. That's that could take over the world if they got together.
They are a extremely intelligent species, and the fact that they communicate with color changes
Hmm.
that we know nothing about. We can theorize what their different coloring patterns and lighting patterns, chromatophores mean, but we don't understand that, and but they do. So it's also been said that they have such a rare blood type that they might actually be extraterrestrial in origin.
Like
So,
nothing related on Earth at all to those.
right. So, yeah, the cephalopods are definitely a unique family of interesting cryptids. And we actually have at least 2 freshwater reports of freshwater octopuses here in the Great Lakes area.
Really? I didn't. Would
Oh, yeah.
shock me. Makes you wonder. Like, is it you talking about like Superior?
There's one in just outside of the Duluth area
Mm-hmm.
where it's almost a modern day one. It's a gentleman fell off of a yacht, and as he was trying to swim back to the surface, he felt something soft and spongy wrap around his leg and start pulling him back to the bottom. So luckily the people on the yacht noticed that he fell off and stopped and were assisting him. But he claimed that it was an octopus that had grabbed hold of his leg. And then there is another octopus report that is very close by Dort Peninsula, right there, where it talks about in Wisconsin, where it talks about when Native Americans would go to cross Port de Mort, or the Bay of Death. It was said that when they would try to cross in canoes, that an octopus would reach up and grab the canoes and pull them underwater, and that the chieftains forbid anybody to cross that body of water because of this octopus that lived in the water and that was willing to pull the canoes underwater.
Makes you wonder how they got there.
It's, I know that biology wise here in the Great Lakes, we do have freshwater jellyfish that they pose no threat to humans, but, for something to be fossilized, it has to occur like the right recipe for fossilization. And because the octopuses are such a soft-bodied animal, it's possible that they are fossilized here in the Great Lakes, but will we ever have access to those fossils? Probably not, unless one of the quarries or limestone quarries, opens up something and exposes that. We certainly have the Petoskey stones and the things, the corn corals and those things that we find from the ancient shallow seas that covered the Great Lakes area. But it's really something spectacular to find a fish or a bigger creature that was living in the water then.
What's funny is to find fish on the mountains here where I live, in the rocks. I used to be obsessed with archaeology. I'd go up there. I had a little kit, and I would tap into the limestone where it started layering, and you'd open it up and be a pot of clams and fish skeletons and all kinds of the little trilobites kind of things. And there's something that's like a little spiral. It's like you'd find the skeletons of fish, backbones, and just it tells you about how the ocean under a mountain in North Alabama had fish on top of it, coral pods on top of the mountain behind my grandparents' house. It's like the fish.
Now, see, that sounds like fun to me.
It is. Oh, hey, I was the weirdest little country kid. 'Cause I'd be like deer hunting, looking for fossils at the same time.
That sounds like a fun time to me. Go
It's
fossil
fun
hunting.
I found a pod of coral about a month ago, just on the side of the road out there.
Yeah, I've heard that.
As big as your fist.
Yep, I've heard that. Like from Tennessee south, you can find a lot of different fossils just along the road cuts and in different locations, but you have to be looking for the right stuff and know kind of where to go. Up here in Michigan, you either go up to Alpena or over to Petoskey in Traverse City, and you can find the coral pieces that are fossilized around there. But that's about all you're going to find. You maybe find a brachiopod every once in a while, but mostly you're just going to find corals, and that's about it.
It makes you wonder, like you remember all the fauna from the Ice Age. Everything was like a damn giant Pokemon. You had like tusk horses and giant sloths, and it's like some kid was putting stuff together. Like everything was giant.
Yep.
I wonder if there was like sea creatures like that back then. Like that's how the octopi got in the Great Lakes that rode in the glacier or something like that.
It's possible. One of the things that is truly just mind blowing about the Great Lakes is the fact that they are so big, they are so vast that there's never going to be a point that they're fully drained. And 500 years ago, you could probably maybe see the bottom of the lake at 50 feet above the water. Problem is now we have this like infestation of zebra mussels, and when they die, their carcass, if you will, creates like this cloud of just debris that is like 12 to 15 inches above the lakeshore bottom. So even now, shipwrecks that are well documented as to where they are on the bottoms of the lake, they're obscured by these clouds of zebra mussels, and this blankets all of the bottoms of the Great Lakes. So it might have been possible at one time to send like an ROV or something like that down to examine the lake bottoms, but now with these zebra mussels infesting down there and this just cloud of debris, I mean, it's like the consistency of torn up toilet paper, and it just settles to like the bottom of the lake beds. So even the major wrecks are getting covered with it, so it makes documenting what's on the lake bottom really, really difficult.
It's just that everything else they have there. They got the jumping carp, they got the zebra mussels, you got the snakeheads. Are snakeheads in the Great Lakes?
I don't believe so. They're not here yet, and they're trying very hard to keep the silver carp out of the Great Lakes.
Lamprey is what I was thinking of.
Yeah, we've got the lampreys. Those are well documented here in the Great Lakes. And for people who don't know, they are these long worm eel-like looking things, but their mouth is a sucker, and it's got just rows of these teeth that just embed into you or fish, and they just suck the fluids out of you, and they're really quite disgusting. Most of your major aquariums actually have an exhibit of them so that people can become educated about them, but they're really quite nasty and just
we got them here a little
horrific.
bit in the Tennessee River, and they got the little holes on the side of their face. The gills are holes. It's weird. They look like a monster. And my grandmother's from the Indiana, Illinois area of Lake Michigan there, and she remembers when they became an infestation when she was little.
Yeah,
I had to pick them up and kill them as soon as you caught them.
Yeah, they and that is actually a case of those sea lampreys, those silver carp, are man-made introductions into our freshwater systems. Even the snakeheads are, they are a foreign species that was introduced to the Great Lakes, and whatever reason people thought it was a great idea to introduce them, now they are a huge problem. And like they are just keeping the silver carp at bay in the Illinois Mississippi River of entering the Great Lakes, because once they get into the Great Lakes and start breeding, the problem is they eat all the algae, which is where all of your fish fry hide. So once all that algae is gone, all of your fish fry for salmon, trout, bass, well, they're open game to everything. And within 2 years' time, your sports fishing populations would be done. And,
It's like Florida,
just picked off by all the predators.
How do you have enough time to study this and the cryptids? This seems like an industry of its own.
For me, it all kind of works together, because in order to know the environment in which your cryptid lives in, you have to know what affects that environment. And knowing that so everybody's like, oh, there's bull sharks in the Great Lakes. Well, no, there's actually not, because while a bull shark can live in fresh water, there's locks and dams in place going up the Mississippi and Illinois River. So the bull shark couldn't actually get into the Great Lakes. It could feast on silver carp and probably do us all a favor by eating a ton of them, but it can't actually get into the Great Lakes because of these locks and dams that are in place. So we can disprove the bull sharks in the Great Lakes. Like every once in a while, there will be a meme that goes up on Facebook of, oh, it's the annual migration of the freshwater, dolphins and whales in the Great Lakes. And we're like, not again. No, they don't live in the Great Lakes.
Yeah, it's kind of a process to get there because it's not natural, is it?
No, there's two major waterways that come from
they made it go in there.
Yeah, there's two major waterways that go from saltwater, brackish water into freshwater. So you've got the Mississippi and Illinois River that connect, that go from the Port of Mexico or the Bay of Mexico all the way up to Lake Michigan. And then Lake Ontario, you've got the St. Lawrence River that works up through there and brings it into Lake Ontario. But Lake Ontario is kind of landlocked and doesn't really connect to the other Great Lakes. You could go a couple of streams here and there, but certainly something sizable like a whale or a shark is not going to navigate through those. But then connected bodies of water, you've got Lake Michigan connects into Lake Huron, which goes through the Detroit River down to Lake Erie, and Lake Superior connects to Lake Huron through the St. Mary's River. So, but Lake Superior to Lake Huron, you have to go through the Sioux Locks, and nothing sizable except for a ship is going to get through those locks because it's controlled by the Coast Guard, and they would obviously realize if a shark or something like that was in one of those locks.
I'm going to see a humpback coming down through there.
that would be record setting. I think everybody, would show up to see that.
Come up through what? I'm looking at it right now, just to come up through Canada. No, they'd be up there. That's where the Acadias come from. Every time we get on this Great Lakes subject, I just start looking at them like, how are they there? Those things are huge.
Well, the Great Lakes were carved out by the glaciers.
Oh, I knew that. It's just wild to see how they are. I knew how they got there. I used to have a little map of the United States when I was little, and the Great Lakes were its own piece.
Yep. Which is why we don't have any dinosaur fossils here in Michigan, Wisconsin, portion of Wisconsin, Ohio, or Indiana, because when the glaciers came through, they scraped everything down to the south of us, like Kentucky. Yep. And there's a lot of species that they might find the fossils of in Kentucky, Tennessee, places like that maybe were actually in Michigan, Indiana, or Ohio. But when the glaciers came through, they carved out the Great Lakes area and pushed everything to the south of us. So it is possible that at one point we did have some type of massive dinosaur or prehistoric mammal roaming, but their carcasses, their skeletons, their fossils all got pushed to the south of us.
They got pushed down to Virginia. And then they ran for president. But that's another story. Yeah. I'm always wondering about the glaciers, if there were any like tribes. Well, obviously man lived on them.
Yes.
Like what kind of legends they've created, just these giant sheets of ice that moved. Of course, I don't know if would they know they moved? I guess they wouldn't.
They probably moved at such a slow rate that they didn't really notice it.
So there's no way they moved that caveman noticed they moved. What am I talking about? So this is what happens when I eat before a podcast. I told you I shouldn't have. I'm sitting here thinking cavemen saw they moved. I'll tell you what would be crazy to see as a caveman is a La Brea tar pits. Like what on earth?
I think that's always been like a bucket list trip for me. It was, to go out to the La Brea tar pits and go to the LA Museum of Natural History, because everything that they pull out of the tar pits goes directly into their labs for them to study and document. And it would just be so cool to see, some of the preserved pieces that they've pulled out of there.
Aren't they all just like perfectly preserved? Like just kinda
Pretty
like a
much,
duck at
because
home?
what happens is the tar just sucks them down and wraps around them, and they find carcasses that still have flesh and fur on them. So it's a horrific death, a slow death. But as long as you're not being eaten by another animal, your body gets really well preserved.
Yeah, they said they got the difference there is there's predators
Yes.
and everything in there, and the other kill sites it's always just mammoth.
Yeah, because
Dinosaurs.
what happens is the prey item gets stuck in the tar, and then as
Yeah.
it's trying to escape or making noise, then the predators are drawn in, and the predators start to attack the prey item and start to try to eat it. But then the predators suddenly realize, well, we're stuck
We're
too,
stuck in
which
tar
is why
too.
we get the saber-toothed tigers and the American lions, American cheetahs, short-faced bears. All these, we get those also stuck into that tar, and so they really do have a extensive knowledge of what was living in that area,
Telling you, it's
from
just
prey to
Pokemon.
predator.
That's all Ice Age was Pokemon. Everything was so weird. Pam was asking if there's any dogman sightings around Grand Rapids, Michigan, Minnesota. Wait,
It's Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
yeah, it
Well, we
is.
do have a Grand Rapids, Michigan, and
I
yes,
know. That's why I read that wrong.
um, on the
But she said,
western side of Michigan, actually all of Michigan, we do get Bigfoot and Dogman reports. But as for Minnesota, that's my my mom lives up in Minnesota for half the year, but there's other researchers up there who take those reports. I just focus on uh, Michigan for Dogman sightings and reports, and the occasional Bigfoot. I mostly research the Dogman because Bigfoot, it's a given that they're here. But Dogman is, if I'm researching one of the two, it's usually Dogman.
well, now I'm confused. Did she mean Grand Rapids, Michigan?
There is a Grand Rapids,
Yeah,
Minnesota.
it's okay.
There is a Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and there's a Grand Rapids, Michigan. But I do know that there's a Bigfoot conference near Grand Rapids, Minnesota. There's not one in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
All right, yeah, I got my little abbreviations mixed up.
It's okay.
I just reading MN, MI.
Yep. I know I
I
had to
have my
double look. I was like, oh no, that's an MN. That's
mhm,
Minnesota.
Minnesota, which is cool because I get all kinds of people on here from Minnesota. It's rare that I don't. Matter of fact, one of the first dogman sightings I had was from Minnesota on here.
That was where I had my Bigfoot sighting, was in Minnesota.
There's a seems to be wooded enough to have them. I'm not sure what the
Yes.
draw is.
There's plenty of fresh water sources.
Yeah,
There's plenty of game sources. If they are adapted to the cold elements during the winter and they have a shelter, they obviously are you know just fine up there for living. And also, there's not as many people per
yeah,
mile as some of your southern states.
yeah. It's pretty spread out, and as long as
Yes.
it's not urban.
Yes.
Uh, I didn't realize it about Minnesota about how sparsely populated it was,
Yes.
and the size of it.
Yeah, it's a huge state. But
Hmm.
so my mom is the black bear curator for the North American Bear Center in Ely, Minnesota. And I always tell people, when you go to Ely, Minnesota, you drive past the middle of nowhere to get there.
Past
So,
half
you know,
past.
you have to drive past the middle of nowhere to get there. So they are like an hour from like the next major city. And
I'll be shocked.
they're just a small little town. And you've got your downtown area, which is, a couple of city streets, blocks with a Subway, a pizza place, a DQ, one grocery store, a couple of bars, and some touristy stores. And then you've got like your trader, like your tour guide places with like fishing, hiking, hunting. And that's it. And then everybody else kind of lives on the outskirts going into the woods. And it's right there on the boundary waters of Canada. But just 5 minutes out of town, you've got deer, bear, wolves crossing the road in front of you.
Yeah, the wolves is crazy. Like all kinds of them up there.
Yes.
I didn't know that till I started talking to people from there about how many wolves they had.
Yeah, they've got a good population, but we need wolves in the ecosystem because they are the ones who take care, they take care of the ecosystem by eating the old, the sick, the injured of deer, elk, and moose populations, and help keep that population in check.
The there's no grizzly bear in Minnesota, but there are black bear. I'm
Yes,
thinking,
and the black bear, they are not as vicious and evil and
yeah,
nasty as people think they are.
they're
They,
kind of docile.
you can chase a black bear with a grocery bag and it'll run.
hmm We have those here.
They
We
they
get,
are they are big pussy cats. They scare really. Actually, a cat can chase one across the yard.
they're the ones that get into the garbage, that you have to lock everything up,
You're right.
and 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 you got those stupid cans. You got to put your fingers up in this big hole in the middle of a trash can in the woods to open it. I'm like, I'd rather deal with a bear than whatever's living in this hole I got to reach into right now. We were at the Land Between the Lakes, and all the trash cans are like that. And I forgot because we go to the Smoky Mountains all the time, and I'm like, I don't want to reach my hand up in here. Like this thing been in the woods 24/7.
It's like there could be anything in there, like
Anything.
rattlesnakes, dangerous spiders, whatever.
It's just big enough for your hand to trip it. I'm like, anything. I mean, I want to get a tick. I don't mind it. It's like almost like a not pareidolia, but one of those old fears you have from your ancient ancestors
Yes.
about not. That's why I don't see how people can noodle for catfish.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's terrifying. It's like, oh, okay, let's put our hand into the fish's mouth and pull it up, and then wonder why it's trying to pull us underwater and kill us.
Goes against everything I stand for, and I've
Yep.
caught all kinds of fish. I can't do it. I can't noodle. If you can, I mean, there's other ways to catch catfish. I've
Yes.
I've caught hundreds in my life and never had to stick my hand in their mouth while they were in the water. Now I wonder if those things were considered. I can't imagine like a Native American dealing with a giant catfish. They had to assign some kind of sacred value to them. This giant.
Um, so here in the Great Lakes area, we have a lot of legends of the giant sturgeon,
Yeah.
and certainly
Oh yeah.
the sturgeons get up here. The old sturgeons that are probably 200, 400 years old, they are huge. They pulled one up about 3, 4 years ago, and it was 200 pounds and about 6 feet long, and they estimated that it was about 200 years old. So, and
Really.
because sturgeon are very hard to hook and catch, anyways, it's doubtful that they'll ever collect this particular fish again. But if there's one that's down there that is that old, then you can almost guarantee that there's older ones down there.
Are they like lobster, where they just live as long as they possibly can?
Yes.
Yeah. We had those in the
Well,
aquarium here. You can pet them. It's like petting a dinosaur.
Well, when you think about it, the Greenland shark, they now estimate
Yeah.
that there are individuals of that species that are over 400 years old.
Yeah, and that's the one they were saying like lived by itself so long it had a cannonball in it from the Civil War or something like that. What did they say? It's like living. It's like 400 years old and
Yep.
older than America.
Yep.
The Greenland shark.
Yep.
And they just look like they're not a complete render of a shark yet. It's like somebody designed one on an iPad and it hasn't came out. It's just like it's like a little kid drew a car. It's the basics.
Yeah, they're kind of like the hybrid between like the shark and the skates and the rays, where you see that bridge between the species, because they're designed for cold water and deep depths. Which the deeper the depth, the higher the pressure. So they have to have a different type of body style to exist in those very cold waters, very dark waters, and very deep waters.
I'm looking at pictures of them now. It's just like they're very basic. They're like a Jeep version of a shark,
Yes.
and they're all marred up.
Oh yeah. Almost all of them are blind because they have this parasitic worm that attaches to their eyes.
Is that what happened to the cavefish? All the cavefish are...
The cavefish it's a different circumstance because they evolved to live in those lakes and they're inside the caves. So unless you bring the light source with you, they adapt to a lifestyle where there's not any light going on. Whereas the Greenland shark, it's very rare that they come to the surface, but they go blind because this parasitic worm attaches to their eyeballs and lives there for its whole life and the shark's whole life. There's no like cleaner fishes that come along and eat those parasites off, where you have that in the warmer ocean waters where there's feeder fish stations that you bring predatory fish go so that they eat those crustaceans, those parasites off of them. We don't see that with the Greenland sharks. And actually, now biologists believe that that's almost a symbiotic relationship where
I was about to say that.
The Greenland shark actually lets that happen so it draws fish to it so it can eat those fish.
Yeah, I mean, it's not using his eyes anyway.
Right.
It's like it kind of like co-evolved.
Right.
15. This says that oldest one we were talking about is like from 1700. It's like 500 years old.
Yep.
What's it just doing down there? Just swimming around.
Just swimming around, eating carcasses, making other little sharks. To quote to state the quote from Jaws, all this thing does is eat, sleep, and make baby sharks.
Black eyes. Lifeless black eyes.
Yep.
Yep. Have you ever heard the we're bouncing around here, but I was recently listening to last podcast on the left, and they had this story about the shipwreck, the real famous one, and I can't think of what it's called. It must not
Titanic?
be that famous. No. This is like pirates or something.
Oh, okay.
They're whalers, and they were talking about where the sperm whale got their name, and I thought it's because they look like sperm because they had the giant head, and they went down to a little. And when I found out how they got their name, I was like, that is very meta. Like, you have to explain that to a small child about why they call it a sperm whale. That's probably why I got told it's because they look like one. Have you ever heard why they call it that?
I believe it has something to do.
Going deep here.
Um,
This is worth the conversation. I'm telling you.
It has something to do with internal the way that their brain is formed.
Mm-hmm. They cut their head open, and the brain fluid looks like sperm, and that's why they call it that. I'm like, that's the first attribute that maybe the skinny mouth whale or the bullet head whale. Nope, sperm.
Yep.
Why do you call it that? Well, let's just say the first guy that come up with that. But there's all kinds of those the whalers, with their sea monster tails.
Yes.
Scaling half of that stuff. You could probably almost do a doctoral thesis on just what the whalers saw, and it was all about the show was about cannibalism.
Oh, okay.
But to get to that, I cannot think of what. I know you've heard of the ship before. Ship with whalers and cannibals. So that's where the cannibalism started. Looking at it, this is the Essex. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
God, I was like, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's like the most famous one, and they found them like a year later, nibbling on each other's fingers. They were eating
And I believe at least one of the they did find, according to recountings of the tale, they did find a island, but they ate everything on the island.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the sailors stayed behind, and they eventually did find him, and he was able to exist, just him on the island, because then the bird species and the fish and clams and stuff like that started to repopulate. But he was there for like 2 or 3 years without any human contact.
Yeah, he told him we'd come back for him. He was
Yeah.
there forever. He came. For some reason, I
Yep.
thought he died, but I think you reminded me. Yeah, they did eventually go back and try to find him.
Yep.
They ended up just scouring this island with everything that was on it.
Oh yeah, they ate everything on there, to the point where the birds wouldn't even fly there anymore.
And it was said that they did that because they thought they was about to get rescued,
Yes.
and so they just showed up.
There was no, it wasn't like on Naked and Afraid where you ration every little piece you get. They just were like gorging themselves on everything, and then they ran out of food once again.
Reminds me of how the dodo went extinct. Almost the
Yeah.
exact same way. A lot of people don't know the dodo is just a pigeon. Like, you could just bring it right back. You just have to put them in an area and make them get fat and tall again. You think that would work? How does the evolution work? Can you make it go faster? I mean, breed a pigeon up to look like a dodo? That's all it is.
You'd have to find the right genetics that could pick up on those certain traits and breed for that.
Yeah.
And after many generations, you might produce a similar species, but not one that was 100% genetically, dodo bird.
I think Mike Tyson would have done that by now on his rooftop aviary. When he gets done fighting Logan Paul, I might present that to him. Hey Mike, why don't you make a dodo bird? I'm looking at the pigeon beaks now. What's the other one? The upland moa. That's just went extinct like 200 years ago, from New Zealand.
Yes.
It was like the very, very last dinosaur.
The elephant bird.
Yeah, it was was it called the elephant bird?
I think that was the common name for it. I don't know what the Latin name for it was, but I think they did call it the elephant bird.
Maybe. I was thinking, because there's a famous foot in a museum, and it's from a moa, and it's from I'm looking it up right now. It's from New Zealand. It's like a giant kiwi is all it is.
Right.
It's like
Well, if you look at like the emu, the ostrich, the elephant bird, you can draw their ancestry right back to the terror birds that used to run across North America and other continents, and they were essentially just these 6 foot, 8 foot tall bipedal birds, like with these massive beaks and claws that would just eat anything, and we're very good at it.
That's all they do. I used to be flat out. Was it like that in the early 90s? There was this emu boom or emu boom. And I was in like 6th grade, and I got really obsessed with emus. Like, I wanted some. But they were like $10,000 a piece back then.
And now you can probably get one on Craigslist for $100.
It's not. Yeah, it's very cheap. That bubble burst quick. People lost like fortunes because they said it was going to be like the meat of the future.
Yeah, and it's just too gamey, and the eggs are just too huge to use for anything.
What was it? The other one was grease. They were going to use the oil, ostrich oil and emu oil.
Yeah.
Someone gave me an emu egg one time. I was so obsessed with it, I made friends with emu farmers, and I'm just a kid going to their house on a bicycle, just off in the country. Anything could have happened to me. My parents didn't know where I was. This was the 90s. And I just came home with an emu egg one day, put it in my incubator. And then, it takes 80 days instead of 21. And I remember taking it outside and busting it after like 3 months. I'm like, how far when it started to get stinky?
Ooh.
I said, how far did I kind of cracked it? It didn't even got one little speck in it. Like, this thing didn't even start. Just wasted a whole quarter on an emu.
Oh,
Yeah. Heartbroken.
it's like incubating a dragon egg.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. I didn't know you had to put it in fire. Figuring like Daenerys Targaryen. Speaking of dragons, I saw that earlier. Dragon Wing says there's dragons in Wisconsin. She sees a lot of dragons. I don't know. I don't think
So there's like a Mothman type creature that's been
Yeah.
reported around Lake Michigan. I dismiss those reports because there's one or two researchers who are cashing in on that, and they won't let other investigators talk to those witnesses. So when I find cases like that, where a researcher is hoarding all of the case files and won't let you talk to the witnesses, and threatens litigation, then I'm like, yeah, you just keep stockpiling those reports while the rest of us just shake our heads.
they threaten litigation against Mothman witnesses.
Not against the witnesses, but
Or
against
the people
who
on
want to
behalf.
interview the witnesses.
See, that's just. I've gone so far into the cryptid witnesses. I'm coming around. I'm like, what motivates someone to come up with these things on their? Because some of them are made up. Like the guy, what's his name? A Good with the duck-billed aliens. Good. You know what I'm talking about, the blue ones? He had to go to Congress because of them.
Okay, I have not investigated that one, but yeah, there's a lot of strange people in cryptozoology, and sometimes the researchers who are supposed to be the responsible ones are just as strange as the reports that they're supposed to be getting.
I don't. People often tell me, like, you can't be trustworthy of these people just because they all say the same thing. And I'm like, but they all say the same thing. Like, they're all grifters and heard the other person say the same thing. And that's
Right.
what they're doing. And I'm just like, well, Corey Good. That's his name. And I'm just trying. I'm like, what? Like, you think these people, like the husband and wife? There's several of them. I know you've met with them before. Not any specific person, but it'll be like a husband and wife team, and they'll have the same experience. It'll be just the wildest thing in the world, and they'll have it rehearsed almost down to they won't even deviate.
Right.
What do they? Do they sit down one night and say, I'm just going to come up with this, and we're going to do it, and we're going to sell T-shirts? I can't believe that. Well, I can. I mean, George Lucas wrote Star Wars, but I just don't know I don't know what. Have you ever called anybody in the act of doing something like that with your investigations?
I've gotten some reports over the years that it's just like, oh, come on. Like,
Yeah.
I would get a Dogman report and have like a stick figure drawn in the report. And then, like another time I got a report, and if I clicked on it on my laptop, it would show a different picture than what I clicked on with my cell phone. And when you clicked on it with the one device, it showed an exposed dog penis. And it's like, well, that's, and of course, because they submitted the report through the North American Dogman Project, when you try to trace it back to the person who submitted it, of course, you hit a dead end because it was a fake anonymous email to begin with, somebody who just wanted a hoax. And it's like, oh, stop wasting my time.
Exposed dog penis.
Yep.
Okay. That'll do. Well, I put the picture up there of the Good guy's
Okay, I see it.
yeah, his duck-billed aliens. Yeah, but that was his thing. He created a whole cinematic universe, and it was this. It took him into space, and it kept him there for 20 years. And they brought him back, and apparently he aged the whole time he was there, but brought him back to the same age he was. And then he started telling his story, and he got caught making it up. Surprise. I just don't get that mentality. If you want to create a cinematic universe, why don't you write a cinematic universe?
Right.
Now you're just insane.
There's a whole genre of books out there that love that subject, and
Yeah.
you have a place in the bookstore for them. Just write your story there and put it into book form. Don't come to us researchers and waste our time and money and energy with your hoax reports just because you think you're going to get something over on us. Because if I see any red flags with your report or your story, I'm going to call you out on it.
I would have a hard time, being like an investigator like that, like you are, just from walking up on somebody, just looking at them and be like, "There's no way you saw what you thought you saw," and probably on pills or something. What's the wildest situation you've been told to that you think is real, is not somebody just faking it?
Hmm. That's a very
When the
good
Venn diagram
question.
is like this, just
Um, because I've gotten a lot of different stories over the year. I would say the one that was really interesting to me, and I actually put it in my Flying Cryptid book, was I was down in Goshen, Indiana at a Paracon, which was outdoor, and a gentleman actually showed up and he went to the woman who was running admissions and said, "I want to talk to this cryptozoologist that you have on staff or here as a speaker." And she
mm-hmm.
said, "Well, she's right down there." Pointed me out. And so the gentleman came down and said, "I need to talk to you." And I said, "Okay, sure." And he recounted a tale where several years prior to that, he and his buddies went bullfrogging to, catch bullfrogs for frog legs. And they were walking around in this marshy swamp there near Goshen, Indiana. And they were trying to not make a whole lot of sound so that they could catch as many frogs as, their limit was. And they said all of a sudden they heard this loud flapping of wings. And they heard something splash down in the water. So they're like, "What the heck is that?" So they were very, very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to get close to where they heard it splash down the water. And when they thought they were close enough, they flipped on their flashlights really quick and they shone it in that area. And this huge thing launched itself out of the water and had wings. And he said it looked every bit to him like a pterodactyl
Mm-hmm.
that was supposedly went extinct millions of years ago. And this thing was, flapping its wings and took off up into the air. And he said it was as tall as we were and had a wingspan twice our height.
Where was this at? And he said it take place.
Down in Goshen, Indiana,
That
or
makes sense.
near Goshen, Indiana.
Yeah.
But he sought me out to tell me this, and he was alone. He didn't have any friends with him who were like, "Come on, tell her the story. Tell her the story." He sought me out and was like, I just wanted to tell somebody that he wasn't looking for any fame. He wasn't looking for any fortune. He just really wanted to tell somebody his story. And then another Flying Cryptid one that I had was that also made it into my book, was a guy who swore up and down that he himself had witnessed the Butler County gargoyle or the Chikara gargoyle and had seen it with his own eyes. And he met me at the Butler County Paranormal Conference. And I said, "Wow, that's a really interesting story. Could you write that up and email it to me and I will get it into my book?" So he did. While I was driving home that night, he was writing it up, and he had like drawings of the creature that he had done, which were actually very good. And his story is one that I still tell to this day during my Flying Cryptids presentation of the Butler County gargoyle.
Really? So
Yeah.
I wonder if that's
So
like the same thing. If the gargoyle, Jason McLean, who he is. Did I haven't seen you on the same poster before with him? I don't know why.
I don't think so. I don't think that name rings a bell for actual conferences that I've been at.
Everybody gets so mixed up. I see people who know people. I'm like, that's how I know you. But he swears up and down he saw one when he was younger, about 13, in Texas,
Okay.
and it flew right by him in from a canal he was in, and he said it wasn't a crane. It had the what's the diamond shape on the tail.
Yep.
Um, he said it was a ramfractoid pterosaur. It didn't have the crest on the back of its head. It's just a straight up reptilian head.
Right.
And he's talked to a bunch of people like that, and everywhere in Texas, and he thinks the Jersey Devil was one of those, just the way
Could
it was
be.
described. And there
Could
was
be.
apparently in France during the, I'm not trying to get it wrong here, but I wanted to say during the French Revolution, a farmer had a dragon or something in a case that he caught, and he thinks that's what it was. He thinks the farmer had one as well too, because it could be just a real small breeding population, just
Yep.
very dangerous.
We
And
certainly get a lot of like pterodactyl reports from all over the world, and it's doubtful that people are mistaking it, this for a bat species or a bird species, because birds have to have feathers to fly.
mhm,
If they don't have feathers, they're not flying anywhere. And bats usually only come out at dusk through night.
yep,
So you're not going to see one of those during the day flying around. So what are people seeing? What are these large flying creatures that people are seeing and, describing as the same thing that you see,
mhm,
any preschooler can take you on a tour of a museum and tell you exactly what dinosaur
yep,
species, this is, or you show them in a book and they're like pterodactyl or, pterosaur. And, we know our dinosaur shapes. So,
mhm.
it's for somebody to mistake that. I don't think that's the case. I think people are actually seeing something, and maybe it is a very small breeding population of these very supposedly extinct species.
Yeah, and he said it was like the same color of like a crane, like a blue heron,
Yep.
that bluish gray color. And if you're looking up in like where I grew up, we have waterfowl refuges everywhere.
Right.
It's like you got the Arkansas Flyway is like the capital, but here in where I'm at, where all the lakes are, that we have several big ones. And I said I can see how something like that could blend in with all the cranes, just
Right.
especially the sand hills that are coming through,
Yep. Yeah, we've
and
got plenty of sandhill cranes up here. So
the ribeye in the sky. I heard those things are delicious.
I think to me they look like aliens. They just look like an alien, and they blend in with their surroundings. Like you can be driving down the road and you're like, shit, right there's one on the side of the
Yep.
road.
Yeah.
And it's like they blend in. And unless they're in their summer colors where they have a little bit of vibrancy to them,
Yeah, and when
and
they're
they're
white,
different color, mostly you hear them before you actually see them because they make that trumpeting sound, and but you can hear them from a ways off.
there was you can get a permit to kill two around here during the season when they come through. And right after I did that interview with Jason talking about that, I say one of my friends had a picture of one holding it up. He's 6'2", and this crane by his head and his feet almost dragging the ground. And I sent to Jason. I said, "Well, my friend killed a crane," and guess what I thought immediately? He's like, "Yep, can't tell the difference. Giant 6 foot. They got wingspans
Yep.
big as a bald eagle and giant necks. If you're looking out through there and seeing like a bunch of them, you couldn't tell if one had a tail or just
Right.
regular. You can tell if it had, what is the tail? It's called a deltoid tail. Is that what it's called? What is
I
the
think so.
diamond tail called? I keep wanting to call it a ramifractoid tail, but that's the type of pterosaur that it is.
Um,
Deltoid tail.
yeah, that would be because of the tail type. Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be. You could actually call it that.
He said that every report he's ever taken on him has had that kind of tail.
Right.
And he even, you should watch that episode. I'm not telling you to watch somebody else's show, but I did I took the clip of that and clipped it down. And he was talking about how he was so passionate about it that he wrote a booklet and passed it out about be aware of pterosaurs in Texas or something like that. He was like, you really need to link up with this dude. He is cool. But he's one of those guys that's so smart, it's hard to talk to. 'Cause
Right.
You feel dumb. and I didn't know how the interview was even going to go because I could just tell he was up there, like probably running at a higher speed than I am.
Right.
It went great. It went him talking about that. He goes, I took a pamphlet out and run around town giving it out to people. Beware of how did that beware of pterosaurs in Texas or something like that. I'm about to go back and watch that now. It was cool. But like when you said the pterodactyl or coming out of the swamp, that reminded me.
Yep.
Almost
So,
makes you wonder some of the Mothman things could have been something like that.
And that, the Mothman is very interesting because I actually think Mothman is either interdimensional or extraterrestrial, because we have nothing in the fossil record that says that a giant humanoid flying creature should exist here on Earth. But certainly it would be possible for interdimensional or extraterrestrial. So I don't think it is naturally occurring here on Earth, but I think they like to come here and visit,
I would like to know what it would take for us to start seeing interdimensional things happening. And I think the government
I think it would be much more terrifying than people realize, because it's almost like if you don't see them, you're safe. But once they realize you can see them, then we become a threat. And maybe that means they have to, attack us or, do something to us. So I think it's almost better that we don't see them.
Because I get like crucified weekly on Reddit and everything else because I'll just post real stories. Just like me and you talking here and people saying, well, I heard mine speak. I saw one disappear. All this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, I'm hearing this from people who can barely turn their phone on. They're not conspiring with each other.
Right.
They're not. I know a couple of people who probably are lying, but a couple that aren't. It seems like the more details and amount of stories they have, like, makes me think, well, are you hanging out with them in your spare time or something? They're not that. I mean, just some guy that sees one walk across the street and you can't see it again. That's believable, but somebody that lives with them all the time, you kind of think, not just the people that cohabitate with them all the time, but the people that have these elaborate stories with them.
Right.
Like they have them, they name them and they've held their babies, that kind of stuff. That kind of makes me think, But at the same time, that they're going somewhere and there's no bodies, so something's happening. Either they're lying about it, they don't exist, and that goes for any cryptid, not just Bigfoot. I'm talking about like Pukwudgie.
Oh, right.
Like where is this stuff? But people are seeing.
Well, the Pukwudgies are hidden in the woods. That's I get
under stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they like the woods, and they're very good at living in the woods and hiding in the woods. And I think I've never encountered one because my miniature pincher would eat them. So, because she'd certainly bite the snot out of them. But Pukwudgies. We have reports of Pukwudgies all over North America.
My favorite non-Bigfoot cryptid. I get really bored with Dogman, and it's not because of the cryptid itself. It's because of some of the people that deal with it.
Yes.
I call Dogman like the tactical bro cryptid. Like it's the cool kid cryptid.
Yeah. Everybody's an expert on Dogman until they don't know. It's pointed out to them that they don't know what they're talking about. And then they're like, but I watched this Hollywood movie. Shut up.
I know you were the Michigan Dogman lead investigator. I didn't want to say it because of you. I'm talking about like other folks. Like, I was the guy with the 1776 shirt, and like he's ex-army. He's like, saw Dogman, bro.
Yep.
Saw its eyes. Took a picture. There's nothing in this picture. I circled it, bro. love the red circles. Have you ever seen an actual Dogman yourself, or just heard the reports?
So I have collected what I believe is Dogman evidence. About 2 years ago, I was headed up to a Bigfoot conference in Menominee, Michigan, and I stopped at a very well-known rest area that's right there on Lake Michigan's shoreline outside of Nubian Way, Michigan. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's really nice about this rest area is it has a gazebo that connects the parking lot to the beach of Lake Michigan. You can walk down to the beach and you can walk along the shoreline of Lake Michigan. So I had my miniature pinscher, the one who would eat a puckwudgie for me. Had her on her hiking harness and leash, and was walking up and down. Now she has basic tracking skills, trained, so she knows how to follow a track. She also knows when to pick up on things that smell weird. So we had walked to the west of the gazebo about 150 feet, and I was trying to get her to go potty. So she wasn't having it. So we were walking back towards the gazebo, and I thought, oh, there's this stream cut that goes into Lake Michigan. I'm going to go get pictures of it. So I walked down to the stream cut, and my eyes are trained onto the stream cut, not necessarily onto the beach. So I get within 15 feet of the stream cut, and I'm taking different angles of pictures and at different zoomed in lengths. And it's right about this time that I hear my min pin start sneezing, which she is a very healthy dog. She never sneezes. So I'm like, what are you sneezing at? And as I turn to look at her, I realize what she's sneezing at. And here are these tracks that lead from up on the highway, down the beach, and into Lake Michigan. This was a bipedal creature because it was like 1 footstep, then a second footstep, and then a third, fourth, but it was wider apart than what I could naturally walk. And these footprints were pressed into the ground about an inch. I'm 180 pounds. I was barely leaving any tracks. These footprints, I took a picture of my foot next to one of the footprints. These footprints are over half the length of my foot and wider than my foot. And I wear a size women's 11 shoe and a wide shoe at that. And so this was a very big animal. So I took pictures of it, documented it, went to the Bigfoot conference, which Ken Gerhart was there, Allison Jordan was there, Barnaby Jones were there. And I'm like, hey guys, gather around. Jay Buchanan was up, or Backlund was up there. I'm like, everybody gather around. Tell me what footprint this is. And they're like, well, it's not a bear. It's not a cougar. That's not a wolf. It's canine, but where did you take this at? So I gave them the location. I'm like, it's 3.5 hours east of here along Route 2. And everybody's like, I said, so Dogman? And they're like, yeah, that's a fair guess. Dogman. And I'm like, so I have photographic evidence of this footprint, and it's, everybody's like, oh, well, why didn't you cast it? Because I wasn't expecting to find a Dogman footprint. Okay. My car is 200 feet in the opposite direction. And no, I don't have any casting materials with me. I was headed up for a Bigfoot conference and had just stopped to go pee and to potty my dog. I wasn't expecting to find any evidence, but I had my camera, I had my foot. So I did the best I could because anybody can measure my foot.
I thought when you said the dog was sneezing, it saw something, but yeah, the dog sneezing is a telltale sign that they're.
She smelled the track and was like, Mom, look, and it was like, oh, what did you find? Oh, okay, that is pretty good.
Thing. But they always don't they say dogs sneeze when they're around other dogs to let them know they're not a threat or something like that?
I've never. I train dogs and I work with a lot of dogs, and I've never noticed them actively sneezing around one another. But she had caught the scent of something that she didn't like, and she made it known. So that's how I saw the track and took a picture of it.
You just reminded me, I've got an episode with Allison Jordan filmed that I've never broadcast.
Allison's awesome. She's fun.
I need to hurry up and do it because I keep forgetting about it. I record all these things, and then tonight would have been a recording, but I knew that, it's Thursday, and I was kind of in a live mood. I'm like, yeah, I'll just do it live. But yeah, I did one with her. Like, I mean, it's been a long time ago. I forgot what it was about. Obviously about ghost hunting.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I won't have to go
she
back
does
to it.
cryptids and paranormal. So yeah, yeah.
She introduced me to, you said Barnaby. She introduced me to
Barnaby.
him.
Yeah, Barnaby Jones.
Yep. Who else? Who else you say was there? It was Barnaby, and it was Allison, and it was Ken Gerhard.
Yep, and Jay from he has a series out called Finding Jay,
Mm-hmm.
about how he
Okay.
goes Bigfoot hunting and develops a deeper relationship with himself and his understandings. So, and I want to say it's Buckland or Backlund
Mm-hmm.
is his last name, but I could be wrong. But his video series is Finding Jay.
Finding Jay. I have to look that one up. I know I had a real good time with Barnaby and Allison. That was fun. Barnaby.
They're good guys.
I've been in like a couple panels with him, just haphazardly. Even though he's got that giant sighting up there in, is it Michigan or Illinois? Where's he at? Wisconsin.
Yeah, he's in
Yeah.
Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yeah. Not trying to get them mixed up. Yeah, no, that's right. Allison's in Wisconsin too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Along with
Wisconsin.
Chad Lewis and I don't think Kevin Nelson's from there. I don't know where Kevin's from, but yeah, Chad, Allison, and Barnaby are up in Wisconsin.
See, I'm in Alabama, and there, for some reason, everything's so secretive in the paranormal-ish adjacent world. Like, you got to really like get in there. Like, I've slowly become friends with a couple little pods of folks, and got invited to a couple of things. And one's this weekend. I'm just not going to go because it's 3 hours away. But like, you can't just find people like you and the aforementioned bunch here. I had to go to Tennessee to get all my good guests that are local. I mean, I'm right on the Tennessee line, so it's not a problem.
Right.
It's so weird. Like, what is with this state? Stop being so secretive.
And that's weird because, with all the hollers and wood boogers and everything that,
Yeah,
they say
there's a
are
lot.
down there, you would think that there would be more talk of it because you have haunted locations down there.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's just strange. Like, nobody will let. Like, my mom and her family, 2 or 3 generations back, all lived in an old plantation house,
Okay.
and it's known to be haunted, but it's not. Like, my mom said, I've stayed there, which could be why I don't ever see anything, because she said I stayed there all the time. I didn't see nothing. And some people say they have. She goes, I've been there for years. I mean, I've stayed there for years at a time and never saw anything. And neither did my other grandparents. So other people's like, yeah, it's haunted. And then I ran into a guy that was starting a little paranormal society back home, and he said that they found a portal in the woods. I'm like, okay, now you're just full of shit. Because I've been out there before. I said, those are the woods I used to hang out in. I never saw a portal. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, you got stuff like that that's kind of just, meth heads trying to keep people out of your stash. And
Yep.
But as far as like the wood boogers, yeah, that's what they call them. It's hard to get in good with them. Like, I just met some of the more famous ones about a month ago, and I'd never even heard of them. They're from my home state. They keep to themselves. Tennessee, not so much. I'm working on a mini documentary for a famous one just across the line right now, called the Flintville Monster.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you heard of that one or not. It was supposed to be white back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. I don't think I've heard of that one.
I'm just trying. I've got one interview. I got an interview from the very first person ever dealt with it, that ever experienced it. That almost started the craze, I think he said. And I'm working on like 2 or 3 more, and it's just even Tennessee ones are kind of secretive. Not as, because you got the Alan Searcy from Nashville, or Gallatin, Tennessee,
Yeah.
north of Nashville. He's one of my main liaisons up there. I made friends with him. And didn't you know Sin Schrader Hill? Did you meet her? I'm thinking.
I don't think so.
Everybody's running together. But yeah, she's in Flintville. So she's really close. She's one of the first people that got me a hookup with the monster people.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm networking.
Yeah, if you get a chance to go a little bit further up into Tennessee, Scott County Jail is very active for paranormal, and Rugby, Tennessee, which is about a half an hour from there, is haunted. It's a little tiny town that still exists. It has like 50 residents, but that's also very haunted. So check those out.
Have you been in the Scott one?
Yes,
That's cool.
I was there this past. Me and my best friend both did a trip. We started in Tennessee, went all the way to North Carolina, fossil hunting, and then came back and did Mothman Festival. And that was our vacation. So, but we started at Scott County Jail and did a daytime investigation there, and there was activity. We heard latches on cells, clacking. We heard somebody walking, and there was just 4 of us there, and we were all accounted for in the same room. So, yeah, definitely, if you can check that one out. If you go to Bristol Caverns,
Yeah.
if you get a chance to just sit in one area and just listen, you might hear something talking.
Oh, really?
Because I sat on the first level at the steps, looking at the dragon, and my best friend and the guide went down like the next 3 levels, because the stairs are all different sizes, different heights, different, like, there was no way I could walk up those stairs just crazy. And as I was sitting there, I heard 2 things talking off to the left of me, or right to the right of me. And when she got down to the lowest level, she thought she saw a goblin type creature that just kind of stepped back into the shadows and hid itself. So there's something there.
It's not too far from Huntsville, is it?
I'm not quite. I think Bristol, Tennessee,
It
is a little bit more northern.
Yeah. It's on the
But
Cumberland Gap.
if you want to make a trip of it, definitely check that out. And if you like dinosaurs, go to Terror in the Backyard.
Oh, I love dinosaurs.
Oh, then you got to go. It's called Terror in the Backyard, and these people build museum props, movie set props, but their whole backyard is a wooded path course of dinosaurs set out into the woods, and they're most of them are life sized, and they're real looking.
Oh gosh.
It's they take donations. You just park in the parking lot in front and go through the gates and walk around. But we went, I had my 3 dogs with me, and it was one of the best afternoons that we could spend walking around. They have a little gift shop there where you can buy dinosaur things. I stocked up on toys because, I love me some dinosaurs.
That's not too terribly far away.
Yeah, you should make a trip of it and just go check out, and go to Buc-ee's while you're up there. Go to Buc-ee's.
Oh yeah, we got a Buc-ee's here.
It was our first time going to Buc-ee's in.
I'll definitely go to another Buc-ee's though. It's not going to stop me.
Yeah, we went to in Sevierville, Tennessee, is the biggest Buc-ee's, and any gas station that has 200 pumps, and the inside is like the size of a Walmart's, you're like, yeah, we're spending some time here.
I was wearing a Buc-ee's hat here.
Yep.
You can see it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had Christy on here before from Scott County.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I've never been up there because it was weird. We found out we were talking. I'm in Huntsville, Alabama. She's like, "Well, I'm in Huntsville, Tennessee." What?
Yeah.
Didn't even know there was one. I would like to. Do you know who Alan Searcy is? I know I mentioned it earlier. The author from Gallatin.
I don't think so. I don't think I've met him.
He runs a little ghost tour up there.
Oh, nice.
And I kind of want to go. I kind of want to wait. I was looking just a second ago how I wanted to go to Gallatin for a ghost tour, maybe Scott County Jail earlier that day. But there's no way to do it because Tennessee is kind of just like Alabama. If you're not close to an interstate, it's 2 hours to an interstate.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. I love those little small town ghost tours though, because they got the they got like the real stuff that actually happened
Right.
preserved. And Eric Freeman Sims, he's from up there too. And he's the Unseen Paranormal podcast guy.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he just bought a 200-year-old house in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, that's haunted.
Ooh.
And he's going to start doing tours and stuff of it. I'm like, there's not a better person in the world to own I was so jealous. Like,
That almost seems to be a new movement in real estate, is buying haunted locations and opening them up for tours. I mean, they seem to do really, really well with that. It's like, okay, I'm paying my mortgage payment for the year now because, my haunted location's booked out for the next, 10 weeks.
Here, I'll share it just so you can look at it. But I could, you know how when somebody does something or makes a move career-wise and you think that's the most perfect thing that could ever happen?
Mm-hmm.
This is like, when I saw this, like, holy God, I'm jealous of this dude.
Nice.
I was like, I hate you, Eric. But I also can't wait to come up there and see that. That's not it. That's Harriman Hospital. But yeah, he bought that. He already did a little you still there? Okay.
I'm here.
I did it. I went the wrong tab. But he made a Facebook page for it, and it had like a little document collection that came with it.
Oh, cool.
Like, I wouldn't leave the house for a year straight just looking at stuff. Apparently, it's kind of condemned, but I don't know.
Oh,
It's 200 years old, so what do you want? I don't know. It's like, what do you want from me? Anyway, it's been like an hour and 20 minutes, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. This has been fun.
okay.
Nice little Tennessee rabbit hole from two people who aren't from there. But I'm telling you, this podcast is my podcast is foundation is laid on the Tennessee Haunting Group. Because every guest I had for about 6 months was from that group.
Uh-huh.
And so like I owe my life to Tennessee, even though I hate their college. I hate their football team.
Oh,
But,
come on. But they have the blue tick coonhound is like their mascot, and that's awesome.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's old Smokey. He's a fun one. And they have a guy dressed up like it too, which is confusing. When you see a dog petting a dog. It's like Pluto petting Goofy. Or Goofy petting Pluto. Like, how's that work? You're why are you naked and you ain't? Why is Pluto naked but Goofy's not? It's the same animal. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go up to Scott. You basically, I want to go to Scott County Jail because Lynchburg has one just like it, about the same size. And they said they did investigations, and up on the woman's side on the top, they heard people running down the stairs all night.
Yep.
And I think they even had a pamphlet to Scott in Lynchburg. Lynchburg's a lot closer. It's like 45 minutes. Where all the Jack Daniels is. But yeah, if you ever get over to Lynchburg, check that out. They got a couple haunted places, and I went to a Paracon and got all the information for the society that does that, and I had done jack shit with it. It's been in my garage for 6 months. I need to reach out to them. I could really have some friends like 45 minutes away.
Well, there you go. Do it. Do it.
You get so many contacts doing this that
you do. I mean, I definitely noticed that with doing the magazine business. You meet a lot of people, and there's never enough time to explore every destination and interview every person and do it all. But I certainly try.
And you end up like getting with people like a year later. Like, hey, just catching up. And everybody understands. No one ever's like, well, you son of a bitch, why don't you call me the second day?
Right,
everybody understands. Yeah, I've met one person who I've considered uncool doing this. And I will not name names. I'll just be forgiving, and in the back of my mind, I'll wait for them to come to me when I get big enough.
Right.
Because when that happens, that's how I'll know. It's like a success beacon in my mind. If that happens, it's like, I made it. Gotcha, bitch. All right, Shetan. Your website is in the description, so you don't have to give it. But if you have anything else, your website, your YouTube, and your Facebook are all in the description. But if you have anywhere else to want to find you, go ahead and let everybody know.
Well, you can find my books and magazine publications on Amazon. If you type in Shetan Noir or Squatch GQ magazine, it will bring up all the current issues of magazines and books. So you can find my publications there. You can find me on Facebook, of course, Shetan Noir, and on YouTube, if you look for Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Podcast, that is my podcast. I do a weekly program, about a 15-minute program every Wednesday on different various topics, whatever might be of interest to me that week. It's mostly just my editorial opinion, of things that I read and talk about, but go ahead and check it out, and you might find something you like or want more information on. So, yep, you can find me if you just look for Shetan Noir.
Yep. And in the description of this video or podcast episode, however you're listening to us. All right.
Okay.
I'll see you next. This won't be the last time you're on here because
Okay.
I'm starting to go through my favorite guests again. I'm glad you came to me because I was like, who else can I reach out to? Oh, they came. I guess it was meant to be.
Anytime you want me on, just let me know, and I will free up some time to be on your show.
Cool. I need to start doing some panels. Those are fun too. Just let everybody go
Yeah.
at it.
Oh, that would be so fun. I would pick Barnaby Jones and Allison Jorland to do a panel with, and you would have an hour of awesomeness.
I would just sit here and mute myself. I would just do this.
Oh,
All right. Thanks for coming on. I'll reach out to you. It's
Okay.
gonna be a good time.
bye,
See ya.
guys. Have a
Stay
great
warm.
night.
I never didn't believe in Bigfoot. I never believed in it. I didn't believe in it. I never gave it any thought.
They kept wood knocking back and forth to each other, and it was in a pattern.
Barn owls don't typically throw rocks.
I come across these tracks.
Sasquatch is still not on my mind.